Well, here I am working on my bike. I haven't made a video in like forever. Just been busy and, family life got in the way of riding and all those kinds of things. So it just hasn't happened, It just hasn't happened in a long time. And there was all the COVID nonsense, struggling to make money, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm back into it. I'm back riding my bike. I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm trying to get out when I can. And I've got some issues with my bike, of course. I did my chain and sprockets not too long ago. I needed to just retension the chain, which I've done. I'm gonna, I'll show you guys how I did it. I've got a tool that's pretty cool for doing that. Probably a lot of you will have one, but some of you won't. And the other issue that I've got on my bike is I go to start it in the mornings, and when it's cold, well, just in general actually, but mostly when it's cold, it just doesn't want to start. It cranks over, but no action, and that's kind of annoying, and it's slowly kind of been getting worse. And it's one of those jobs where you say to yourself, man, I've got to fix this, but you don't. And now's the time it needs fixing. It's just got to be fixed. I've got to figure out what's wrong with it. I've got some plugs, so I'm going to do a plug change. I've got to do oil and oil filter. I'm going to check the airbox, probably clean that because it hasn't been done in ages as well. So there's just a whole bunch of general maintenance that I need to do. I've got a brake switch that needs to go on this, a hydraulic brake switch, which I'll also show you. That's kind of a cool thing to know if you've got resets. And at the moment I'm just waiting for some tripod gear and some camera gear to arrive, because my main camera gear is stuck up in Cairns because I took it up there and planned to get back there and haven't got back there yet. So that was probably a foolish decision, but when I get up to Cairns, at least my gear will be there, but it's not here. So I'm gonna start mucking around with this bike. It's going to be hard for me to film it the next couple of days, but I'll try and film bits and pieces where I can and show you what I'm up to. And hopefully we can get back into making some interesting videos, go on some interesting rides, and do some cool stuff. All right, cool. So once you get all your fairings off, and they're well, not terrible to get off, but they're not, the easiest of things to get off. It's a bit of a fiddly job. Once you get them off and you get your tank off, this is pretty much what you're going to be faced with. And if you want to get it, if you want to do any kind of maintenance on your bike, you're going to be down at this level pretty much. So it pays to have a bit of a understanding of what you're doing. Otherwise it could be troublesome. So the chain I've got, the chain's pretty good now. It's it's a bit hard to tell from here. It looks like it's too tight maybe now. You got to you can't really tell like this actually. You pretty much got to get someone on the bike, sit on it, see how it goes. Yeah, there it is. See. So it's about right now. You're supposed to have about 25 to 30 millimeters of play. They say about 30 millimeters of play in these chains. So your chain should never be too tight. If it's too tight, you're going to have a massive problem. If it's too loose, you're going to have a problem because it can come off. And either way, it's bad. So it's got to be, within the tolerance. Honda here, they specify 30 millimeters. So, that's really what you should do. And you should really do it with someone sitting on the bike. I haven't got anyone to sit on the bike with me, so it makes it a little bit difficult. And I use a thing called a chain monkey to do this, which is really, really awesome. And I will definitely show you guys that, because it just makes this job really easy. I've done the screwdriver tricks and the sprockets and all that kind of stuff, and all that stuff is just too hard. The chain monkey is just bulletproof, and you do it once and it's done right pretty much every time, which is great. And what I've got to do next is I've got to get this airbox off. Now I've got a little bit of additional wiring on mine because I have extra things on my bike and I wired lots of extra stuff in, so my wiring's probably not quite the same as your bike, but it'll be similar. And my bike also had an ABS module, which I didn't remove, but somebody removed it somewhere along the line, so all the ABS stuff on this bike is all gone, even though it's an ABS model. Not that I really care, because apparently the ABS on these, this is 2011 CBR1000RR, and apparently the ABS was rubbish on these. So lots of people disabled it anyway. On the later model bikes, it's completely different, so you can't compare it to these. But on this model, it wasn't very good. It was too intrusive. And I've got Brembo brakes and Brembo levers on my bike as well, so the stopping power on this bike is just amazing. It's just great. So there's never a problem stopping for things. Some of the things that I've added to my bike, lithium battery, Power Sport lithium battery, really happy with that. rear sets, vortex rear sets. Really happy with these. The only thing is I do need to adjust these. These were set up really quickly when I first set the bike up, and they've never been set up again. They definitely need adjusting. I need to come. Oh, I can't remember which way I need to go, but I need to adjust them anyway. They need adjusting. I need to get on the bike and I need to adjust them all. I reckon if you're setting these up, the best thing to do is to probably just, try various positions, sit on the bike, see how it feels. And then you just really have to ride, and you have to kind of figure out what you like. Otherwise, you're never going to get it set up right. I'm not real happy with the positioning on these at the moment. It's not real good. I get a little bit cramped in my knees. It's not real bad, but it's not the best. So once you set them up right, it makes a big difference. And if you move them back or you move them up, it can make a huge difference to your riding position. And also, you want your knees in around your tank, so when you get into corners and stuff, it just feels better. So there's that. What else have I done here? Oh gosh, can't even think. There's like a gazillion things on this bike. But anyway, and I'm going to now start getting this airbox off. We need to get the airbox off, and we can get it the spark plugs, and then we can start examining what the spark plugs look like. And also, I've undone all the bolts for the airbox. We want to get this airbox apart. We want to see what the filter's looking like, because the air filter might be just full of crap, and I suspect that it probably is. I suspect that it's probably really bad because I've been lazy with my bike, and you just can't afford to be lazy with it, and I have been. I've been lazy with my oil change, and I've been lazy with the fuel filter, and I normally do this stuff really regularly. And I'd have done, probably over 5,000 Ks now, maybe even 6,000 or 7,000 Ks since I did this stuff, or checked it. And it's too long, really. 5,000 would be a far more ideal kind of level to check these things at. Okay, so I've finally got this to bits. You have to disconnect a few things to get at this. It's pretty dirty in the old airbox, as you can see here. It's going to need a bit of a clean in there. It's probably hard to see, but yeah, it's dirty. It's, that's typical. It's done, probably 5,000 Ks, I guess, since this was last checked. Maybe a little bit more. The filter is just stuffed. It was okay last time I checked it, but it's really done now. It's done its dash, it's probably hard to see here, but between these layers, there's all kinds of crap and insects, and I've been up and down, a number of dirty roads, and it's just really had it. So I'm replacing it. I've got a brand new one here. New oil. Oil filter's already on. I've just got to top the last bit up. Would I put another OEM filter on this? No, definitely not. The difference in price between this filter here, this OEM filter, and an aftermarket filter that I could, wash and fix and replace. Well, not replace. I could wash and clean basically and re-oil, or blow out and re-oil. Is about $30. Like, I couldn't recommend going this way. I just did this for convenience because I would have had to wait if I ordered another aftermarket one. So, I mean, it'll be good for until another major service now. So, but next major service for sure, I'll put aftermarket filter on it. I'll put a BMC or just anything, anything that's half decent you could put in here, and you can clean it and you can oil it, and you don't have to go down this rigmarole of throwing the whole thing away. This one was about 100 something bucks anyway. I think about almost 117 or something like that. The difference in price if you go to an aftermarket one is like 135. So. And maybe if I order it online, maybe even cheaper. So, I mean, there's no point in doing it this way. But that's the way that I've done it this time. It's a bit stupid, but, it is what it is. At least it'll be done. It'll be all cleaned up. I've got plugs still to go on the bike. There's a few little things to tidy up, a few niggly things to do. I've got to get this airbox off to get at the plugs. The plugs are a bit of a nightmare to get at. The injectors and everything in here look okay. You can kind of see them in the back of there. That's like the main injectors there. I've got a feeling there's secondary injectors here as well. I haven't really spent a lot of time looking, but it looks like there's a set of secondary injectors down here. The old oil filter here. It's reasonable, the oil's looking a little bit dirty. Not terribly dirty, but it's a little bit dirty. It's always good to sort of check inside the filters and just see if you can see anything dodgy getting caught in there. If you could see metal filings or something inside there, that would not be cool at all. That would be pretty bad. Thankfully in this situation there's nothing going on like that.
But that's always a nightmare, you know, it's a nightmare. If you take your sump plug off and there's metal filings all over the bottoms of your sump plug, well, then you've got a problem. But it's always good to not find those kinds of issues, of course.
Checking the oil on the Honda, I think it's a bit of a nuisance, really. You have like you have like a filler up here, and then you have like a dipstick down here. I prefer the Gixxers where they have a window, and you can just look at the window and you can see where your oil level's at all the time. So it's not such a hassle. Not this is a major hassle, but you know, you've basically got to pull a dipstick out. You got to look at it, you know, put it back, clean it, put it back, do it again. A window is much nicer. I don't know why Honda didn't put a window on it. I guess there's some reason for that they didn't do it, but I prefer a window. So all the tools to do this job are fairly basic. Allen keys, you need, I'm just trying to think, screwdrivers, Allen keys. You need just basic tools. For the chain tightening, you need some fairly serious lever bars, and you certainly need a torque wrench. The rest of it that I've done so far has been pretty easy. It's more like the fiddliness of things. There's lots and lots of plastic clips on these bikes. You've got to just keep clipping things apart and be careful you don't break the clips. It's real easy to break the clips. It's like putting a tank on, for example. There's not a whole lot of room to get your fuel feed on and off easily, so that can create a bit of a hassle. But you know, overall, if you're sort of fairly mechanically minded, I think you could do this job fairly easily. It's not a really difficult job. One of the things that is important is your injector rails. So there's a lot of plastic pieces in these injector rails. It's all like plastic clips, plastic this, plastic that, with you know, with kind of joiners, a lot of joiners actually. And what can happen is these joiners can leak. You can get leaks at these joiners. So it's kind of important actually to get the bike fired up and start then, you know, quickly lift the tank and start checking all the rails and making sure that there's no leaks. You certainly don't want leaks in these places, and I can smell a little bit of gas on my bike sometimes, so I suspect that I probably have a tiny leak here somewhere. I haven't checked for that yet. I'm hoping that I can find it. It's probably a seal somewhere. Hopefully then I can just replace the seals and sort it out. So basically, looking at these plugs, it kind of looks like a bit of moisture's been down inside here. It's probably just been sitting for too long. I don't know what the last person kind of did with the bike, but I mean, I've had it undercover, but they might not have. So they look okay. They look not too bad, but you know, they're not perfect. Definitely time to replace them. I've got them on the end of a piece of tube. That's the easiest way to get them in and out. The spark plug adapters, you just don't have hardly any room. This is a fiddly job to do. The coils down here. There's the coil. Getting these coils out was a bit of a nightmare too, because they've just been in there for a long time. They look okay. You know, you can't tell just from looking at these things, really. You really have to test them, but I think they're all okay because my bike was running okay. It's just obviously had a bit of moisture down there, and the seals probably around here are just, you know, this rubber's probably not perfect anymore because, you know, it's getting a few years old, so you got to expect that kind of thing. And they're down in there basically, so you can kind of see, you know, there's one down in here. Hard to see from there. Maybe you can see from here. Here, you know, and they're all hidden underneath here. Yeah, going to be not easy to get at, not easy to get out. But anyway, has to be done, so carry on trying to do it. I'm going to use those bits of pipe to try and put new ones in there. We'll see how we get on. Yeah, so far it's looking like there's been a bit of moisture in there. I mean, this bike sat a lot. It just didn't get used enough. In my place it was sitting in a garage, but you know, the person who owned it before me could have had it sitting anywhere. I don't know, they could have had it sitting in a shed or somewhere where it was a little bit damp, and the dampness has definitely got in there, and it's you know, you can see it around the top of the spark plugs, and you can see it on the coils. I don't think it's serious enough that the coils would need replacing or anything like that. It shouldn't affect the functioning of them, but it's just not the best look, you know, and it's better to have them sealed. So we'll try and when we put them back in, we'll just make sure we've got a little bit of, you know, electrical grease or something around the tops of them so that they seal in the holes a little bit better. The water shouldn't really get in there, but it seems to be. I'll show you what I mean. So this is the next coil, and the plug, and you can see, you can just see where the moisture's been in there. And I've got some pictures of down the plug hole as well, and you can see that it's just been a bit damp in there, and it's it's not full of corrosion or big amounts of rust or anything like that, but it's certainly been moist in there, and that's not so good. It's just not a place you want to have moisture. So what I'm doing here, as I said before, is I'm using this on the end of the spark plug to just get the plug started in the hole. You've got to be careful because you don't want to cross thread it, which would be a nuisance. Once it's started, I've got this set up. There's just enough room to get this in by itself. And then what I have to do is I have to put this other adapter on the top of that once it's already in the hole, and then I can kind of do it. I can't do it with anything bigger than that. That's probably if you had a smaller half decent socket set, it'd be easier. I just don't really have one that's the right size for this. I don't have in between. I've got like either large socket sets or smaller socket sets, and I've just got nothing in between. I've got nothing in between those two sizes, so it's just making this job a little bit more difficult than what it needs to be. But it's not too troublesome. I've sort of got a method here, and it seems to be working, so I can get them in and out without too much drama. And I'll keep working at it. And let's just have a look. Let's just hope that all these plugs all look okay. So far they all look okay, minus the little bit of moisture that's been in there. So I'm pretty happy. And it would be a disaster to pull one out and see the head burnt off or something like that. That wouldn't be so cool, but let's hope that doesn't happen, right? So I'm just doing these plugs one at a time. You can pull them all out at once. You need to mark them if you pull them all out at once so that you know which coil goes where. Not that it really should be important, but sometimes it is. So it's better to just mark out. If you're going to pull them all out at once, mark out each one, put them out, lay them out in order, be methodical in how you do it. Don't drop them, whatever you do. If you drop those coils and they get a hit, they can just be damaged, and you'll have to replace them. So be really careful with them. Definitely don't drop them. Okay, today, well, I'm finally at a stage where I've got this airbox clean. I've got all the spark plugs in. You saw what the first two were like. The last two, actually, the coils were in much better shape. They just didn't have any of that surface kind of like, rusty kind of corrosion-y kind of stuff on them. They looked in really good nick. The plugs, still had the same. They still look the same. All four of them all look the same. They've all got that little bit of rust around the top, and it's just the dampness it's got in there. But yeah, the other two look like they've just done a better job of sealing. So maybe those first two just weren't seated properly. I did find a few problems, like the way this airbox was seated actually when I first, the bottom half of the airbox, when I first started taking it off, it was, it just wasn't tightened down properly. There were like 4 screws that were just loose, quite loose, and 2 that were holding it down, and that was it. And that's really not an ideal situation. And I found out later that actually once I took it off, that there's a wire that sits over the top that runs the injectors, that runs the primary injectors, which are the lower set, and it was just sitting in the wrong place, and it was holding the airbox up. And I reckon that's why they couldn't screw it down, and they just didn't bother to take it off and check it. It's typical dumb stuff that you see from time to time. So I've got it seated properly now. I've got it all cleaned up, and I'll show you how it looks. Okay, so this is the box, all nicely cleaned. No more gunk in there anymore. It's all looking pretty slick, pretty new. Cleaned all the trumpets up. The inside of the throttle bottles have been cleaned. It's looking pretty much ready to go. It's a little bit dark here because I don't have a lot of natural light in here. Well, I do, but probably not enough for this job anyway. So without a torch or something. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. I'm going to put the air filter in now. We can start screwing this thing back together. I've cleaned the upper part. This wasn't as bad, obviously, but I've given it a quick clean. These secondary injectors have just they've just had a quick once over. And hopefully it's all going to be okay now. Not going to know until I run it. Yeah. Oh well, she's all back together. Well, she's not all back together actually, but the engine parts are anyway. I've just fired it up, and no hassles this time. Just bang, straight into life immediately, which is exactly how it should be. Yeah, none of this winding it over 100 times to try and get it started to flatten your battery and all that kind of carry on. That's all gone away, so that's great. So it was probably just the moisture just sitting around those coils and stuff, just no good, So we've got the new plugs, we've got the new oil, we've got the new filter, new chain and sprockets done a while ago. The only thing I've got to do now is my brake pressure switch, because at the moment I have I have a rear brake and it's really good, but it doesn't trigger the switch for the rear light, so that's no good. So we've got to sort that out, so that'll be the next job. But I'm pretty happy. I've just done a quick warm up on it now, and it was really good. Just checking everything, checking for any oil, and obviously petrol smells or anything like that, leaks from injectors and things like that, because you're moving stuff around and you don't want any of that stuff happening. Anyway, I'll show you. She's still looking a little bit naked here, but that's all good. We can soon get around to putting her clothes back on. And happening.